So good evening, friends. Good evening, Bhante Jāgaro. Thank you so much for coming back again for your second session at the Metta Centre. And thank you to all our friends joining us in person as well as online, and the friends who we've seen before and new friends who've joined us today as well. So tonight we have Bhante Jāgaro, who will be giving us this session. He will be talking about loss, facing up to instability. And this is, of course, the second talk that he's given at the Metta Centre during his time in Sydney visiting from the United States. So Bhante Jāgaro, if you haven't met him already, he's a Buddhist monk from the US. His interest in Buddhism began as a layperson after attending a meditation retreat in 2004. He then became inspired by stories from the Pāli Canon, in addition to some more contemporary teachers like Ajahn Chah and Ajahn Brahm. So motivated by gratitude and determination, he sought to dedicate his life to the possibility of deep inner peace. And so here he is today, here in Sydney, offering us this talk on loss, facing up to instability. Thank you so much, Bhante. Over to you.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, everybody here at the Metta Centre, new friends, old friends, and of course, people online. Last week, if my memory is correct, we started out with some meditation, but this week I thought it might be nice to maybe just start out with maybe a few words, and then we can do a little practice based off of those reflections. So today's topic is on loss, right? So loss. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means you've had something before, and now you don't have it. There's lost that, right? So let's say Tina gave me some water, yes, and if I had, let's say, misplaced it or fell away, or maybe I got a hole, right, and all spilled out, then we could say I lost the water, right? And there's different ways of looking at loss, right? Usually when you think of loss, it often has a negative connotation to it, yeah? But it can also, depending on the situation, can also have a positive connotation. What do I mean by this? Suppose instead of Tina giving me water, suppose she, so I don't know if you have this here in Australia, but back in the United States, we have like these vines called poison oak or poison ivy. I don't know if you have something similar, but they're very oily plants that, for most people, when we contact them, it becomes very itchy. Yeah, it actually becomes extremely itchy. You can't really get the oils off easily, and the oils tend to rub all over ourselves. Yeah. So if Tina gave me some poison ivy, as a gift, and I said, "Oh, thank you, Tina," and I would accidentally start, rubbing on my body, that's sort of really itchy. Yeah. And then what would happen if I were to, let's say, lose that oil, right? Then my body would no longer be itchy. Yes. Yeah. So in that case, losing the oil off the body would actually be a more pleasant experience. Yeah. And so the reason why I bring this up is because in the context of meditation, what I want us to do is start to be attentive to the experiences of things coming into being, as well as things passing away, not necessarily being afraid or worry about things going away. Yeah. So let's start. Yes. Let's find a good posture to be in. Yes. So last week I was encouraging people not to be too relaxed, but not to be too rigid. Yeah. So finding a suitable posture. One could be upright, right? We'll ring the bell to start the meditation session, and feel free to close your eyes. Yeah. Bringing our awareness inwards. allowing any thoughts, future of the past to be put aside. Yes. For these next 20 or so minutes, just be here. Bringing our attention inwards, bringing our collected awareness to our body. Just getting a sense for how the body feels sitting in this chair, sitting on the ground, however the body is. Getting a sense for how it feels. There's no right way or wrong way for the body to feel. Different parts of the body can feel warm or cool, hard or soft, tingly, vibrating or numb, pleasant or painful. Allow our attention to be in tune with how things are changing. Different feelings coming into being, coming into our awareness, and different feelings fading away from awareness. Sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly. Just being aware of how the body feels. Now bringing our attention a little more inwards. Seeing if we can be in tune with the breathing. You can start by taking a very intentional deep breath in, holding, taking a very intentional deep breath out, and holding. Again, deep breath in, hold, and a deep breath out, and hold. Do that a few more times on your own. Deep breath in, hold, deep breath out, hold. And then allow the breathing to return to its normal rhythm, however it wants to breathe. But this time, just being aware. Breath goes in, we're aware. Breath goes out, we're aware. Allowing the breath to arise, allowing the breath to cease. Being very attentive of the breath going in and going out. Breath arising and fading away. Our attention gets pulled away. Any thoughts or memories, future or the past. This is normal. Nothing wrong. Very gently and persistently bring our attention back to the breathing. Very attentive, breathing going in. Very attentive as the breathing goes out. Very attentive to the breath arising. Very attentive to the breath fading away. Continuing to be very attentive to the breathing, attentive to the breathing going in, attentive to the breathing going out, attentive to the breathing arising, attentive to the breathing fading away. Attentive to any phenomena that comes into attention, attentive to any phenomena fading away. Allowing the sounds to fill our attention, allowing the sounds to fade away. Attentive to the rising, attentive to the passing away. Allowing eyes to open very gently, allowing our attention to move upwards, continuing to be very attentive. Phenomena as they arise and pass away. That's their nature. Phenomena arises. Phenomena ceases. Um, I could do something a little bit different this week. Last week after the meditation, I gave a Dhamma talk, and then at the end, there was some time for questions. And this week, I'd actually like to ask people here, people joining, or Dhamma friends, yeah, about anything that what your thoughts or what your um, curiosity might be around meditation that you participated in, or the topic today, which is on loss. And partly is because I want to, so the good man who drove me today from Arosha, we were talking, and I was telling him that along the way that I often think of myself as a less of a Dharma teacher and more of a Dharma cheerleader. And so for those that I don't know, cheerleader has the word has made its way in Australia, but in the United States, a cheerleader is somebody who is often for a sports team. They're often on the sides doing like pep rallies, or you may be waving things or doing flips in the air or whatever. But the basic point of it is to be encouraging, to uh, to um, to encourage the players to do their best. Yeah. But then when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, wait a minute. I actually don't want to encourage people to just, cheer. I actually want people to play. And I was thinking, well, what's the right analogy here? So then I was thinking about it for a while. I was like, well, actually, the better analogy probably would be if I was maybe a very mischievous quarterback or player on the field, yeah, and so instead of, let's say, playing for the team, I would throw the ball into the audience and say, "You catch and you run it down the field," yeah. And so that's actually what I want to at least try to do today, because ultimately, yeah, the the practice that you do is for your well-being and benefit. Practice I do is for my well-being and benefit. And so, with that in mind, I would like to ask you, what does it mean to you when I bring up the word loss? What was it like to start to pay attention to phenomena or the breathing as it was arising and passing away? Anything come to mind?
So for those who are online, you're welcome to pop your answers into the chat. For those who are here, you can just speak your mind. What does it mean to you when you consider loss?
Certain. It's a certain thing which is like comes and goes. Yeah.
Still so devastating, especially unexpected loss, as loss often is. So devastating. It's just me, but yeah, sometimes some things I've lost you just still, that's you to your core. Feels like it does.
Thanks for sharing. And someone online, also in the same vein, said, hardest thing for me would be losing a family member. And someone says, we lose the comfort of being with them. And I liked what you said at the beginning in terms of the analogy with the water and the loss of the water and loss of oil. Sometimes loss could create all of that kind of suffering and dukkha. Sometimes that loss could be actually something that gives us relief in some ways. So wonder whether loss is the problem, or whether it's something else instead. Someone else has said online, loss feels destabilizing.
Oh, I really appreciate what everybody's saying. So, first thing I said was, loss feels like a certainty, and then loss can really feel like it's driving right in the heart. Yeah, when it's something that you very means a lot to you. And the person online talked about the loss of how the hardest thing might be the loss of a family member. And then Tina, you like the kind of recognizing that, oh yeah, maybe it's there's actually some nice things that you could lose, right? And in addition to the pain, another person online said it's destabilizing. It's like it's not just painful; it sometimes can just, feel like anything that you had like a solid footing on just gets taken away from you. Yeah.
We have some further responses.
Yeah, please.
Someone says, loss feels like a dissolving of something I cultivated. Someone says, loss is like an earthquake, but it could also be liberating from letting go. Someone says, we are attached to them being there for us. And we have a much longer question as well. When we get to it,
Okay.
I'm happy to ask it. More are coming. Even one piece gone from a jigsaw puzzle and it stays forever incomplete, more so when one person is gone from your family. Someone says, initial feelings of losing someone you know or a job or belongings before we accept the fact and work on acceptance and letting go. And then we also have someone quoting Kodo Sawaki, loss is enlightenment.
Mm. Okay. So it's a good Dhamma teacher that throws something out that gets you to kind of think about it in a different way. Like, what? Loss is enlightenment. What does that mean? Um, but the point about a good Dhamma teaching is for one to reflect. Yeah. So I I passed the ball to everybody. I wanted you to run down the field a little bit. Yeah. So take the ball and it's important to try. Yeah. To um, actually make that attempt, to have the possibility of failing. Yeah, that's kind of loss is often failing and loss are often, especially in our kind of competitive culture, kind of seen kind of very kind of joined at the hip, perhaps. Yeah, um, but it's actually quite important. Kind of that last kind of maybe reflection around loss as enlightenment. Um, maybe to start looking at these things in a different way. Yeah. And so um, it's so anything that we value a lot, like a family member. So I can think of, for myself, before actually it was shortly before I started to look into monasticism. This was about 12, 13, 14 years ago. My father passed away. And it wasn't sudden, but like any family member or somebody you care about, you often wish there was more time. Yeah. And I I must admit I did wish there was more time. Um, there was some time I did have my father before he passed away. He was diagnosed with cancer. And so he was actually had an operation, and I was a layperson, and I went down to visit him, the mother, and we all knew that the operation had a low chance of the possibility of curing the cancer, but he tried, and of course afterwards it was pretty clear from the test results that the cancer was still spreading. So he only had a certain amount of time left, and one of the things that I remember doing with him as we when I was as right after his operation, he was in the ICU, and I was with him, and there's a bunch of family members around, including his brothers and sisters, other people, and there was someone in the family that was I don't know, maybe for lack of better word, maybe being somewhat irritating. And I remember just given my father just had an operation, I was just trying my best to be very patient, with the situation, and then afterwards I went for a walk with him around the ICU just to help him, because he didn't have much strength, and he told me on the walk, he said, I'm really proud of you. And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, you know, um, I know that situation. I know that was provoking. So I actually really appreciate that you didn't say anything. And I remember it being kind of interesting because in my mind, I was like, man, I really should have said something. But my father, the way he operated is that, he really wanted to um, uh, keep people in the family together. Yeah, that was one of his main kind of priorities in life was to keep people together, to keep the family together, keep as much harmony as possible. Yeah, I mean it's not always easy. Everybody has their differences, and some people want this and some people want that. you know, and not everybody, sort of gets along with everybody else. But he saw himself very much as the kind of the person to keep the family together. And so I think he was appreciating that I was, at least doing my best to help keep the peace and help keep the family together. And kind of hindsight, as I'm telling this, I'm almost, also wondering if that also was, he was also hoping that I would be, in that role as well. Yeah, because that's what he saw himself doing. And perhaps he was also hoping that I would continue on, that recognizing his own life was about to be lost. Yeah, that was something he valued a lot. So, anyways, he died about a couple of weeks after the operation, and yeah, it actually was in part my father's passing away that led to maybe the fuel for myself to really reflect on, because I've been thinking at this point of, should I look into monasticism? Should I not look into, it's one of these people kind of on the fence, back and forth. For those that spend time at monasteries, you probably know lots of people like this. They're kind of checking out the monastery, think, oh, I don't know. So I was kind of in that phase, maybe a little bit more seriously. And I decided, well, okay, this is my time. I need to go off. I need to do a retreat. I need to come up with an answer. Yeah. Of course, I'm on now, so you know what the answer eventually was. But the point being is my father's passing away was actually a very integral part to me eventually becoming a monk. Yeah. So sometimes the loss of one thing, yeah, can spur on the development of something new. Mhm. And so I maybe share that story as a way of helping us start to look at loss in different ways. Yeah. And so loss, like I said, loss, especially of things that we share, yeah, things that we value, things that we are, somebody mentioned attached, yeah, things we're holding on to, but maybe I cherish this one, I want this water to go away. Yeah. So if I really cherish this water and the water goes away, that hurts. Yeah. Yeah. If there isn't that cherishment, if there isn't that attachment, the water goes away. Or isn't that hurt? Yeah. And that's actually you could say one of the core teachings of the Buddha that he wanted us to start to reflect on over and over. It's not a fault of well, not a, it's a very normal thing. We wouldn't be here if we weren't attached to something. Yeah. Um, and so it's actually important for us to use the things that we cherish and value and because we can feel the pull. It's important to actually bring up in our mind regularly. Oh, is there anything I'm still holding on to? Is there anything if I were to die today, if I were to die in the next hour, if I were to die in the next breath, is there anything I'm still holding on to, I'm still cherishing? And not to be afraid to try to answer that question. Yeah. Um, perhaps one of the saddest things that I encounter is people that sort of feel that they're I don't know what the right words are, that they have all the answers and everything's okay. And you could say, hey, you know, we're attached to, it's like, no, I'm not attached to anything. Everything's good. And you're like, okay. Because there's no, at that point there's nothing that can be learned. Yeah. I mean, you're sort of stuck, right? So the fact that people are here, willing to reflect, we're willing to engage with this. This is actually a really important thing to acknowledge and not to not to actually, to, oh, maybe I'll put this, to maybe raise up in our mind is like, oh, wow, I'm not completely deluded. Yeah. And there are people that are completely deluded like this. Yeah. And I was like, wow, okay. No matter how bad things get, at least I know that there might, the things that I'm still holding on to. Yeah. And we can work from them. Yeah. And so it's like starting to see things not from oh yeah, I'm a Buddhist, I've been practicing for this number of years, I'm meditating, I'm still attached to this and still attached to that, and I'm a hopeless failure. And we can think of it that way. But I'm trying to give you another perspective of realizing the things that the sort of the positive states that are there. You are listening to a Dhamma teaching, you are practicing meditation, you are putting forth effort, yeah, and you are recognizing, oh, is there anything I'm still attached to? And to not be afraid of answering that, even if it's really, I think sometimes we can get afraid of things we're like holding on to, you know. Um, if I can share maybe a story of a monastic life, um, I'll try to be general because this is actually about another month, but I think it's okay. I try to usually talk about myself as any foils, but I think this is okay because it's a very endearing story. So there's a monk where I was training at a Abhayagiri. Um, he had let's say quite an attachment to dark chocolate. So for those that don't know, in our tradition, we're allowed to accept dark chocolate and have that in the afternoon. So normally, as a Buddhist monk, we can't eat or drink most things, but we can have things like water and juice, and we can have this peculiarity having to do with the tradition. We can have dark chocolate. I can explain more for those who want to know why. It's like, why dark chocolate? Okay, I'll explain later. But there's this one junior monk, I remember, had quite a interest, you could say, quite an attachment to dark chocolate. And he'd be struggling with all, quite regularly and quite openly. And there was something actually quite, at least I appreciated him sharing his struggles openly. Yeah. And part of it was because, we'd see him struggle, and sometimes, he'd be really good. And, because sometimes people would offer dark chocolate in the afternoon, and, we're not only supposed to really take it if we need it. We're not supposed to just like, eat it as some sort of craving thing. We're really, basically we're only supposed to take the sugar if we're like low on energy or if we're tired or something like that. Similar with the chocolate for the caffeine, the stimulants, right? So it's like, okay, do you need it? If you do, good. If you've been working, and typically gets offered if we're working in the afternoon or something like that. But if you're fine, you don't take it. It's really that simple. And so, of course, the training is to execute, right? And of course, and so sometimes he would do really well, and other times, he, taking the dark chocolate, and we see him struggle, yeah. Um, and then he makes sometimes successes and sometimes failures, but that struggle, I found it quite endearing. Yeah? And I remember, many of the monks, we would sometimes, save our dark chocolate, and we actually give it to him. Yeah. So he'd be like trying really hard to restrain himself. And then we would, it's like, oh, this way we give him the dark chocolate, that we would normally have for ourselves. Yeah. And so, in that way, um, you know, encouraging all of you not to be afraid of identifying and even sharing your struggles with things that maybe you feel like you're attached to, or in kind of the cases like we were talking about, sharing the struggles of maybe things you've lost that are still quite poignant and still hurting within. Yeah, often we're still struggling with losses of people we've known. Could be parents, could be family members, could be partners. It could be the loss of a job or loss of health. Sometimes we lose things like our limbs or our eyesight. I was actually reflecting over here, mate. Like, well, what if I were to, like, throw my glasses away? Those that don't know, you can see my prescription's pretty strong, yeah? It's pretty thick glasses. And these are actually what do you call, the really kind of special lenses that have the high index. And so, yeah, I can't really see anything. It's just kind of a blurry mass right now. So it's like, wow, yeah, I'm practically blind. Yeah, loss of vision. And so much of the world that I experience comes through the vision. Yeah. So there's so much that maybe we have lost that we're still struggling with. And actually it's important to start identifying and sharing that with others, yeah.
Okay, someone online says, we really have a lot of attachments to fight. I give up fighting chocolate. Pick your battles. But Bhante, we do have another question.
Yes, please, okay. Yeah, it's great.
So this was earlier when you were asking about loss and if people had questions. So someone says, Bhante, I'm curious. I'm a very much a novice lay practitioner, and I find applications of the Dhamma can be challenging at times. On this topic of loss really resonated as something I continue to be challenged with. In fact, last week, our family dog passed away. I still found myself grieving and regretting over the things I felt I could have done or been better. Despite knowing impermanence, I still find it challenging. Same for family and friends who have passed away in the past few years. How can we apply the Dhamma in a different way to help the natural human emotion to grieve and be attached?
Very good question. Dhamma is not a teaching of the intellect, so to speak. There's an aspect of the intellect to understand what teachers are saying or pointing to, but it's really more of a teaching of the heart, or as one teacher said, you have to know, to really know Dhamma, you have to know the Dhamma in your butt. Yeah, yeah. And this Dhamma teacher was I don't think was just being provocative. I mean, you really need to know this at the deepest, bone, cellular level. And the way we can learn this is by persistently, patiently practicing in all situations, not being afraid of our setbacks. And like in this case, the recognizing like, wow, I still grieved over this dog. I still felt guilty for things I've done. Good, you're aware of this. Good. What does it feel like? What does that feel like to grieve? What is that? What's actually that? What does that dukkha feel like? Something doesn't feel good, but how does it not feel good? And so this is actually one of the reasons why I really appreciate the meditation on breathing and also the meditation on the contemplation of the body, because we're often not even aware of how the body feels when we're maybe experiencing a lot of dukkha. Sometimes people go to retreats. I've heard of this kind of third hand that people sometimes report, when they're encouraged to start practicing, paying attention to the body and starting to feel the different parts of the body, and are like, I can't feel anything below the top of my head. There's sometimes people, like that. They're like, wow, yeah. So what does it actually feel like? What does that mean to, like, how do you know that, you're like this, God, I really wish I could have done something more. Like, okay, the thoughts are going on, but how do you feel in the body when this is going on? Yeah. And what is that like? And can you be with that? Yeah. Very patiently, very attentively. Yeah. In my own experience, I can't say for you, but my experience is that in the body, there'll often be certain parts of the body that'll be tense or contracting or maybe piercing or feeling at ease, maybe nauseous, kind of intestinal areas. Yeah. There might be pressure in the head or in the neck, maybe in the back of the eyes. I'm just using a few examples in this particular body mind over here, but it'll be different for different people. But really start to get a sense for how that feels and how that changes. Yeah, it won't be the same. Things will be in flux, right? Some places will feel like hard as a rock, and other places will be jumping all around. Yeah? And start to get a sense of how that feels, and perhaps most importantly, the willingness to be with that experience, that be with that experience of dukkha. So, wow, kind of those thoughts of really wishing you could have done this for your dog. You could have been there for your dog. And what is that like? That the mind is going like that. Yeah. How does it feel in the rest of the body? And being very patient with that. So that's something maybe I would kind of encourage or reflect.
Thank you, Bhante. Someone else has said they're currently grappling with the loss of identity. So things that we identify with, losing that.
Things that we identify with. I'd like to ask the person a follow-up question. That's okay. Like, can you be more specific?
Sure. I kind of know because
okay, you know the
talking
person.
to this person.
Okay.
But feel free, this person, to pop it into the chat. But I'll just keep talking based on what I know.
Okay.
It's more like sometimes we may identify. So, for example, I'm vegetarian. So identify that I'm vegetarian, and then my circumstances don't allow me to be vegetarian. So then I have to like not do that.
Sure.
But I have that identification with myself as vegetarian.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
She says, yes, please share for me. I don't
mind. Okay. No, that's a yeah. So there are often many situations as a Buddhist monk, kind of similar to this, you know, as a Theravada monk, where we're allowed to accept meat under certain conditions, basically, as long as it's cooked meat, as long as the meat, the animal wasn't killed specifically for us. Yeah. But the truth is that at least for this monk, eating meat is often a very sad experience. Maybe sad's not the right word, but definitely not uplifting. Yeah, the opposite. It's kind of a grisly affair. And actually, the Buddha encouraged us to reflect whenever if you get accept meat, and to actually reflect on where this came. The animal suffered a lot for this food. I forgot which sutta, but I remember reading a sutta. Somebody was asking me about this. I don't recall which one, but the Buddha was maybe giving an analogy of we have to eat meat to imagine a couple. They are lost in the desert, yeah, and they had an only child, and because they're lost in the desert, the child dies, and so the couple, continuing to try to find a way out of the desert, decides they're running low on supplies. They don't have any food left. They decide to eat the child to survive. How do you think the parents would feel eating their child? Yeah. I mean, even if like quite literally the meat tasted, meat you generally tastes, pleasant. Do you think they would enjoy it? Yeah. And that's actually the encouragement for the Buddha gave to whenever we're eating meat, not see it as something to delight in, but to actually see this as, what if you had a friend, there's one of your best friends, and for many people, their pets are the best friend, and what if you had to eat your best friend to survive? Yeah. And so um, this is something like a way we can maybe use a situation that we're in, right? Instead of perhaps, kind of thinking about, how do I keep my, kind of identity, right? perhaps try to broaden it or think about it from other perspectives, from other being perspectives. So in this case of, being vegetarian, um, perhaps, kind of a classic example of this is, you go to some relative's house and some old aunt or uncle is making some special thing. They worked all day and it's, whatever, some meat dish, and they don't know you're vegetarian. And they offer it to you because they love you, Are you going to turn it down? And I'm not saying, not to turn it down. There might be situations where it might make sense to do so, but for a lot of people, they might just accept it, even if they are vegetarian, because they know the person didn't mean to do any harm to you, So maybe that's something to consider.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah.
This person has clarified and added more information. So what this person is working with at the moment is holding on to ideals of who we want to be, but losing the idea of who we are. For example, this person is fruitarian. So I would never do X, or I am this type of way, or I do things like this. So that kind of thinking pattern may not necessarily be helpful, but how to help someone who does have that kind of thinking pattern is very attached to these types of ideals and ways of doing things.
I see. It sounds like, if I were to make a guess, that there's maybe a sense of safety and comfort in that identity. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there can be a sense of like, okay, if I am this way, then at least I'm safe. At least I'm not doing something wrong. I'm not doing something bad. I'm not doing something that could get me hurt, or I mean, there is a sense where for example, the Buddha, when he was talking about, for example, precepts, ethical behavior, So in the Buddhist tradition, the precepts are to not kill any living creature, including, bug, to not steal anything, to not sexually assault or commit marital infidelity, to not lie, and to not, take alcohol or drugs in a kind of heedless way to intoxicate oneself. Um, if one really, takes us on and really commits to it, one actually can feel a lot of confidence and well-being from the sense that one knows that, okay, no matter what happens, I know I'm not, doing anything wrong. So Buddha actually recognized there is a sense of kind of well-being and safety around not doing anything wrong. So it's not to maybe discount that kind of inclination, because there is something to that, right? But I think um, perhaps sometimes uh, we can take things on perhaps in a way that is kind of how do I say this? Maybe a bit too kind of self-absorbed or self-focused. So one of the important things about the precepts is that we're doing it in part because it's an act of generosity to all beings around us. So when you take on, for example, make a commitment to not kill even bugs, you're basically saying to the world, you're giving every being you encounter, no matter how big, no matter how small, okay, no matter how much you annoy me, irritate me, make me angry, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to give you that amount of safety. I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe in that way. So that's a gift of safety, right? And it's kind of similarly to take on the commitment to not steal. It's like, no matter how much of a bastard you are, no matter how much, whatever you are, no matter how desperate things get, I'm not going to take your stuff. Right? The same thing with, sexual assault and sexual infidelity and lying and, kind of verbal abuse. And we'll put the kind of intoxicant one. Because that's kind of a special one, kind of. But this first four, it's basically a commitment to, it's, like it's a gift. It's like taking on that commitment is a gift to all beings around you. Yeah. So you're doing it as a soulful thing. You're doing it kind of for everybody. So maybe one way I would kind of look at maybe kind of the identity around something like that is there a way of kind of really looking at that in a kind of in a bigger way, and kind of in a broader way, looking at from other perspectives. Yeah. I remember kind of who was I talking to? Somebody recently. We took a trip out somewhere, and they were saying it was somewhere here in Sydney. And it was a beautiful place, and somebody was saying, "Oh gosh, I feel kind of guilty for enjoying this beautiful scene when I know there's other people suffering." And I'm like no, like if I were out there suffering somewhere, some prison or whatever, like I don't want you to, be miserable out here. Enjoy your time. So sometimes you can kind of misapprehend maybe what other people or other animals or other beings would want us to do. So maybe encouraging this person who asked this question around struggling with identity to try to see things from other perspectives. And one of the ways you can do this is one, just by talking with people or going out, let's say in nature and interacting with animals. Yeah, that's actually one of the things I really appreciate as a monk. People like interacting with people that don't know you, and like, oh, what are you? A monk? They're like, oh, and just watch it. So I remember this time where I spent the Vasa outside this area that had a lot of bears coming through, and I was also in kind of I would also feed the squirrels and the birds, and I just watched them. I spent a lot of time just watching these, and these birds and squirrels. Sometimes they would be really territorial, and other times they'd just be kind of hanging out with each other like old friends, and then they would go back at it fighting with each other, and other times they would just ignore each other, and other times and it was like, wow, okay, they have a whole life of their own, and they have a lot of I don't know, just you could say not just personality, but I mean these are beings just like you and I. They feel things just like you and I. And, often they're just looking for food, trying to stay safe. Yeah, just like you and I. Yeah. So I hope that helps. I mean,
Yeah, that's a very good and comprehensive answer. And knowing this person, I think that would help a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And in fact, I think at one point she was like spot on.
Oh, sure. Okay.
I
Okay.
can see it.
Okay.
We have another question from someone online.
Okay.
What would you recommend to help with dealing with the loss of confidence?
Lots of confidence.
Mm.
Hey. Yeah. Doing everything wrong. Failure. Completely blew it. Well, one of the things I think is important is, and I think you might be doing this already, but if not, um, find at least one thing that you can feel at least some amount of confidence in. Yeah. At least one thing that you don't find yourself completely hopeless at. And I know this is, you're like, so what? I mean, let's say, I don't know, I'm just picking anything, like it really doesn't matter. Just some hobby or pursuit or whatever, just just do that thing. Maybe you're really into, I don't know, um, making, like a lot of people are into like plants and stuff, and they have plants in their home. They're like, so what? I do it all the time. Anyway, I can, take care of plants. But no, just keep doing whatever it is that doesn't matter how small, doesn't matter how inconsequential. Um, it's important sometimes to just have some anchor for feeling completely hopeless or feeling completely like bereft of any sort of value into this world of our life. Yeah. Just so we don't completely drown. Yeah. The other thing I'd recommend, if possible, is if you do have friends. I mean, for those here in the Dhamma community or on the chat, these are really nice people here. So if you find yourself maybe not without much of a community, maybe reach out. These are really nice folks. Yeah, they'd love to have spend time with you and sit. Just said yes, yeah. And like, oh, I don't want to bother other people. No, 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 no. You're actually giving a possibility of a lot of merit. Yeah. So the way we Buddhists think, generosity, yeah, is merit. That means basically whenever we get a chance to be generous, we're actually helping ourselves. Yeah. So you being miserable, right, in front of us and giving us a chance to cheer you up is giving us all a chance to give dana. Yeah. So you're actually like helping all of us out. So yeah, don't be afraid to like plop into a Buddhist gathering and be miserable. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so keeping something up, no matter how inconsequential it is, something that you can keep doing. Being with good friends that can that have your well-being at heart, and probably the last thing is again, I'm a big fan of meditation involving the body. Yeah. And one of the reasons for that is because a lot of times, especially in Western affluent brainiac cultures, this is Eberlin University, there's a lot of smarty pants here, right? We're just in our heads too much, yeah. And it's actually quite helpful to develop more of an attention and experience that's not so much up here. Yeah. And that takes time, right? But it will help you in the long run. You'll get a better sense of what all this, feelings of, doubt and feelings of incompetence or, feeling like you can't do anything right, is really about. Yeah. So consider those three things, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bhante. And yes, you're all welcome to come to Metta Center. And we have a WhatsApp group. If you're feeling like you're not having such a great day, you can pop something into the chat. If you want to share about some great things that you've been doing that day, you can also share it into the chat as well. And we also have volunteering. So we do mentoring. So we will boost your confidence. Don't worry. Bhante, we have another question from someone online. Bhante, we live with family members like our parents since we were born, or with some significant others. So some of them, we've been living with their presence for so long that we get used to it. And it's a normal thing in the world that when we lose them, we experience deep sadness. How do we prepare for this kind of loss before it comes? Because loss will surely come.
Very good. You do it by bringing it up to mind. Buddha, one of the really important meditative reflections the Buddha encourages practitioners is to reflect on dying. So one of the classic ones that we can do is the five. Gosh, I forgot how it gets. I think it's translated, but the 5 things to recollect. Yeah, and it's something you can do daily. Yeah. Does anybody know what these are? Yeah. Throw the ball at one of. Yeah, pass the ball. Does anybody remember the 5 things for frequent recollection? Yeah. Anyone want to give it a try? Even out online?
I remember the 4th.
Okay, you remember the 4th? What was the 4th?
Talked about it.
What is the 4th?
Basically, I will be parted from all that I hold dear.
Yes. Yeah.
Isn't it like I love the nature to
Nature to what? What's the first one?
pass the ball to you?
Right, Tina?
I am of the nature to grow old,
Yes.
to get sick, and to die.
Yes. So I'm of the nature to get old. I have not gone beyond getting old. I am of the nature to get sick. I have not gone beyond getting sick. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. all that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. Yeah. What's the last one? Does anyone remember?
All beings are owners
Heir
the
of their karma.
Yeah.
born of the karma.
Yes. Keep going. Keep going. You can do it.
Their karma. You can do it.
Go for it.
Born of their karma.
Heirs
Heirs
to the karma for the actions they do.
The soul shall be there.
Yeah, they'll be heirs to that.
Very good. Very good. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. This is something to reflect upon again and again. It's a good thing to do it daily. Yeah. Or even more than daily. Yeah. So this is how we can start preparing for our inevitable departure from our family, our friends, our loved ones, even our enemies. Yeah. Tina was mentioning it. There's some good things, It's like, okay, yeah, maybe that all our loved ones, but our enemies, we have to deal with them. And people we get really annoyed by, The only problem is that unless you get enlightened, right, you're gonna have to get a new crop of people or other beings that you get annoyed by. So I remember, I had this kind of thing. I remember kind of thinking about long. This is actually when I was a lay person. I was like, do I really want to go through high school again? Oh no, that's motivation for Dhamma.
So are there any other questions for those in person, those online?
What if you lose your purpose or a belief system you have, and all of a sudden maybe it's sort of like identity, maybe attached to the job.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. So you work up, and one day it's all gone,
Yeah.
and the purpose is gone, and
Yeah.
deal with that.
So I'm going to share a story along this line. What better, thing to kind of like than a Buddhist monk, let's say Buddhism, brings us up. So there's a story, and I apologize, I don't know the details. I wasn't there. There's kind of like one of these things you hear as a apocryphal third hand or something. I don't even know where it came from. It's probably in one of the books or something. But basically, the story of my preceptor is Ajahn and he was a student of a famous Thai monk who many of you know, Ajahn Chah. And so there's another famous student of Ajahn Chah, Western student. He's currently the most senior of Ajahn Chah's Western students, named Ajahn Sumedho. So my memory is that Ajahn Sumedho was, practicing as a Buddhist monk under Ajahn Chah at one of the monasteries. It might have been at Wat Nong Pah, or it might have been after when they were started the international monastery at Wat Pah Nanachat. And they apparently there was another monk and a Meiji nun, I think, or it might have been a lay woman. I want to say it was I can't remember if it was a nun or somebody maybe was thinking about being one. Anyways, this monk and this woman, whether she was a nun or kind of like just a very serious Buddhist practitioner, one day they both disrobed, left the monastery, and they became like evangelical Christians. Yeah. I want to say even like a priest or something like this. Again, I don't know the detail of the story, so I apologize for getting all the details wrong, but the gist of the story is important. So anyways, Ajahn Sumedho was quite distraught from it, right? Right. So he went to Ajahn Chah and he said, Chah, did you hear about, so and so, disrobed, and they left the monastery, they're no longer Buddhist, and they're not just disrobed, they're no longer Buddhists, they're Christians, and what do you think about this? And Ajahn Chah said something like Riley, like, I don't know. So what if they're right? So yeah. This is why we can't, all these kind of conditioned phenomena. Yeah, even something like, these robes, all these formalities, Buddhist monks, it's not, unless one has a sense of the deep stillness that the Buddha was talking about, understand that, knows that for themselves, there's always going to be something that, not, we're not on stable ground. Yeah. The Buddha said that's actually the kind of definition of a sotapanna or a stream enter, is one who has that stability, who's not going to get blown off course. They might make mistakes or whatever, but they know the Dhamma, they know the direction. They're not going to get completely blown off. Yeah. So the Buddha said this was possible. Yeah. And there is this deep stillness and stability that one can experience. Mm. Mm.
Great. Any other questions? Those in person, those online. Bhante, there's a lot of activity online about the 5 recollections.
Oh, great.
Just clarifying each of them, but also just the last one. Could you elaborate a bit more in relation to the last one? So the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions. And for that I shall be the heir.
Yeah. So this is the understanding of karma. Yeah. This is you can say this is like really taking responsibility. Yeah, you hear this word. I know in the US we have this kind of phrase, oh, you need to take responsibility for your actions, right? Everybody points to everybody else and says, you need to take responsibility. No, you need to take responsibility, right? So taking responsibility is actually, I'm going to stop pointing the finger. Yeah. I'm going to stop pointing the fingers, blaming this or that. The reason why I'm unhappy is because this government. The reason I'm unhappy because this person. The reason I'm happy because this work. The reason I'm unhappy is this floor. And the reason I'm happy is this water. And the reason I'm happy is this. Okay. The kind of the gist of karma is, okay, I am the owner of my action. The buck stops here. Yeah. So if there is unhappiness, if there is unease, if there's dukkha, I want to start really paying attention to what I'm doing. How am I contributing to this? How am I adding to it? How am I reinforcing? Yeah. And I know it's not an easy thing, but that, like anything in life, if you're not used to it, you have to try. I was talking to Russia, it was really nice having a lot of conversations. He's been driving me, very kind and generous, and driving me to different places. And it's sort of like a lot of times it's like, yeah, we like we're looking at all this. Let's say we're watching football. Like I know, and here in Australia, you have like Australian rules football, and in the United States, we have American style football, and in the rest of the world, they have the normal football. I heard there's even other kind of football, whatever. I don't know. But the point being is that you can, yell at this person for not, doing this play right or performing this well, but why don't you go in the field and try it yourself? You're like, no, I can't. I might make a mistake. I might look like a fool. Okay, so what? We all have to make mistakes. You all have to be a fool. We have to try. Yeah. I mean, I'll say this, like, I remember before I became a monk, I remember talking to this one Dhamma teacher, a lay Dhamma teacher, was a lay person. And I was telling her, I was like, the thing I'm a big I should do this, but it's like, there's no way I can do this. I'm totally like, I'm a total like addict to this and that, and I have no spiritual, I may have a little bit of this, but no way I can be a monk, it's impossible. And it's just like, we got to start somewhere. Yeah. So go on the field, pick up the ball, try running, and you're gonna fall over. Somebody's gonna tackle you, whatever. And you'll get bruised, you'll get knocked over, you're gonna feel incompetent. That's okay. You get up, pick up the ball, and try again. Yeah. And you'll find out, usually over time, you'll get a little bit better. And if you keep getting knocked over, too much, go find another field, another team. They're still love you. You don't need to like jump into like the pro league or whatever. But I don't know what the different levels are here, Start out with, playing with kids or something.
Bhante, just as a wrap-up question, someone has asked, do you have any tips for helping others through grief and loss? So you've touched on a lot of those. Any other tips to help people who are going through grief?
Right. So I guess this is in the context of maybe somebody helping somebody else.
Yeah. Or even they themselves, for helping others through their grief.
So if one is engaged with this, has this as a practice, maybe they do as a volunteer, or maybe part of their job. You already know that patience and listening are very important, primary. I think one of the things that can be helpful with people when they're going through grief and loss is reminding people of their own goodness and skills and talent. Yeah. Kind of what one of the persons said before, it's not uncommon for people to have feelings like they could have done something, right? They should have done something better, or maybe they should have been with the person more, they feel maybe regret around not having spent as much time with the person. And so it's actually quite helpful to encourage people to remind them of their own goodness, remind them of their own value in this, and to try to use whatever the situation is as a springboard for developing additional or strengthening their goodness. Yeah. So that's what comes to mind.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bhante, for that excellent exposition of the Dhamma, as well as also answering all our questions.
Yeah.
And that was a really beautiful session. It was engaging. And thank you to everyone who's asked questions, who participated, and who also did their sharings as well. And so we have had some thank yous online as well. And Sin said, wishing you well on your Tudong journey, Bhante.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, he's now outing you, Bhante. For those who don't know, Bhante is going to walk from Wat Buddha Dhamma all the way to Aloka and the Central Coast, and along the coast all the way to Sydney. It would take about a week plus, more or less. Please take care, Bhante. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, it's not that long. It's just a short one.
What made you think of doing that particular walk?
Well, I wanted to do it here in Australia before I came, and I was trying to think of something that wasn't too long and to fit in the schedule, because I have different places I'm going, and it's like, well, what would make sense? And this seemed like I don't know, seemed like it worked at the time frame.
Yeah. Well, Australian coast, especially the East Coast, is quite beautiful.
Yes.
So we hope you have a safe and joyful journey, and hope the weather stays good for you as well. Thank you so much, Bhante. And perhaps some short announcements before we do dedication of merit. So just some short announcements. Because Bhante is such an excellent speaker, we've got him back again on Wednesday. So Bhante Jāgaro will be giving a talk on right effort, how to practice. That's this Wednesday, and that will be at the Parramatta area. And this Sunday, we have the Santi nuns who will be doing their Santi Sundays. If you haven't been, they're wonderful. It's like in the afternoon, it's a gathering. We do meditation together, Dhamma talks. Bring your kids. You get people taking care of your kids while you meditate. How good is that, right? And then, of course, there is also sharing of food afterwards as well. And that's a free, all of our events are free. So that's a free event. Along with this weekend, we have a 2-day urban retreat. It's non-residential. And it's on the Saturday and also the Sunday, and that is with Venerable Vimoka, who is visiting Sydney from Thailand. So that is in the city at the Australian Centre of English. So you can join for that Saturday and Sunday this weekend. Also, next Monday and Wednesday, Venerable Vimoka will be delivering talks about understanding the nature of the mind. So I hope you can join for those as well. And if you haven't already heard, our big news is we are expanding to Melbourne. So we have started Metta Centre Melbourne because we have so many different speakers like Bhante coming from overseas. And not only do we want to have them give teachings in different locations in Sydney, but for those venerables who would like to go to other states such as Melbourne, we are also facilitating that as well. So our Melbourne friends can also learn the Dhamma and share in that too. So if you are based in Melbourne or if you would like to participate in that, we welcome you to join the Metta Centre Melbourne team. We also have our newsletter and WhatsApp group. So you can, if you're here in person, we have a red book. You can write your email address and phone number, and those online, you can also send that. I've got the links in the chat as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And thank you again, Bhante. Excellent sessions with us. And if I can invite you for a dedication of merit to close today.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. May we all take a moment to recollect our parents, our teachers, our loved ones, those who have helped us, those who have looked after us. Take a moment to share appreciation for anybody, any being that has offered kindness or offered their support throughout our lives. May we dedicate our lives to all beings and their honor. We share our goodness with all beings and their honor. May we be happy in their honor.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Venerable. Thank you to those joining us in person and online as well.